Hello, welcome to episode 87 of JagaVision. I'm Jared Nyberg. I am co-owner of JagaSilk. You can go on to our webpage, jagasilk.com, and sign up for newsletters and find out when our next episodes are happening. But every Thursday, 1 o'clock, we are doing these shows. We often have really interesting guests on the show, or we try to do some interesting things with our teas. Today is going to be one of the latter rather than the former, but next week we're going to have, it looks like one of my old friends who used to run a tea company called Serendipity Tea Company will be joining us from Europe live, Adrian Bronson. He's a classical pianist and a former tea vendor. Then the week after that, it looks like we're probably going to have Adam Creek join us, and we'll be talking a little bit about, I guess, moving forward. What does it look like for 2022? And then after that, we'll be having C. Swiss join us from the Squamish First Nation. We'll be talking about Indigenous tea harvesting and this concept that we really want to move forward with, working with different Indigenous First Nations and doing some really interesting wild harvested teas. It would be a pretty incredible goal that we're hoping to achieve, but we'll see how that pans out. At any rate, you can also check out all of our archived episodes on our YouTube channel. If you're watching from YouTube, click subscribe, the notification button, all that stuff. So, without further ado, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit today about Hojicha. We're going to be talking about how we make it with Zenzai. I'll actually make some for you here. Thank you. So I'm going to try something special today. We're going to be moving to this, let me see. So there's that. I think I can actually brew up some tea with you watching me on both screens here with a close-up of the actual tea. So this is my 2022 technological jump forward in time. Okay, so let's see what happens. So going to put my Kyusu down. I'm going to be weighing out some tea. This one, okay. And through my scale underneath. So Hojicha, often made with bancha. Bancha is called actually lots of different things depending on the region that you're talking about. But we deal a lot with Kyoto, and so when we're making it, we like to work with this mature leaf harvest that's been roasted in a Hojicha roaster. You kind of bring it upwards of like over 110 degrees, sometimes gets up to 200 degrees centigrade in the tea roaster. Give it some really beautiful flavors. Love to make it with make it kind of rich, so and not too burnt. You can it's pretty forgiving. So if you want to throw boiling water on your Hojicha, you can generally get away with it. I'm gonna look for a little dish. I want to show you what this Hojicha looks like. Hold on. So that's actually what the leaves look like. And then I'm sorry, 1 second. I'm just going to put this on. I'll be right back. And we are back. Okay, so I'm going to make some of this. So this is by Mr. Fujioka. You've actually seen this on the show really early on in JagaVision if you've been watching for a while. We actually had Yasu from Uchida Shokudo, our neighbor, on, and we drank some Hojicha with him when we were talking about how it's a very common complement to traditional Japanese cuisine. It's actually the only tea that he has on his menu. We like to brew it, again, 6 grams, 70 degrees centigrade, and I really like to do 240 grams of water. With that sort of, I find if I put like 8 grams for 240, like the ratio I would do for a sencha, it can be a little bit overbearing. But when I do 6 grams for that same 240, I find that you get this really nice, you just get this really nice flavor. It's kind of got some nice body, etc., etc. Okay, so we're going to let that brew. And, okay. We're going to be drinking it with some of this Zenzai. So it was, over the years, it's become apparent to me, amongst other treats, that this is a classic when it comes to New Year's desserts in Japan. And so my wife, Miu, and I, we really love to have a matcha in the new year, as that's also a nice tradition. But having a nice hot Zenzai is quite lovely. Essentially what it is, I'll show you the ingredients one at a time here. Hold on one sec. So first of all, we have the anko, or and it's basically a sweet red bean. Thank you. And looks kind of like this. So it's the texture of refried beans. You're going to add a little bit of hot water to it and make it into a bit of a soupy texture. And then you're going to add some shiratama. So I often tell people it's kind of like a deconstructed daifuku. The shiratama is just made with rice flour and water and a little bit of sugar and boiled. And then as a little bit of a variation on this traditional treat, we've put in some local chestnuts. So our dessert chef has peeled these open and toasted them a bit. Makes them taste lovely. We're actually going to be serving them this Friday at the tea bar. And then once you've mixed it all together, you get this lovely dessert. So you have the shiratama floating in there. There's the where are we? There's like the anko, the red bean. You have where are we? Looking for the chestnuts. I know they're in here somewhere. Maybe closer to the bottom. Hey Maki, are there chestnuts in this Zenzai? Do you know? Did we not put them in? The hot one? Okay. Okay, all right. So I'll just add the chestnuts now. Is that what you gave me? Is that about how much we would put in? 1 spoonful? Okay. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so that is what it would look like with the chestnuts in there. And it's quite lovely. So we are at the 3-minute mark. I like to brew my Hojicha for 2 minutes, so I'm already messing things up today. Again, though, the nice thing about Hojicha is it's a lot more forgiving than most. So what you're going to find is that the amount of variation from, say, brewing an extra minute is a lot less intense than if you were going to do the same thing with a sencha. You're not going to find that it becomes undrinkable from extracting way too many astringents. And look at that color. Isn't that a nice color? So I'm going to pour some into my cup here. I have a little bit of this Hojicha. So what's kind of interesting about Hojicha is that it's basically, you know how we spend a bunch of time at the end of last year hanging out with our new tea roaster. It's essentially just a very different roasting parameter than, say, if you were going to take the same bancha leaves and turn them into just a tea that we drink. Now, bancha, I think in North America, is most commonly seen blended with a little bit of puffed rice in a genmaicha. You'll see most genmaichas are made with about 70% bancha leaves and 30% lightly toasted genmai or brown rice. And you get this really lovely drink that you see served in a lot of Japanese restaurants. To be honest, I am actually unsure why genmaicha is so commonly served in Japanese restaurants in North America. As from what I know, you don't really see it in Japan as like that ubiquitous, that common, commonly served in restaurants. What you do see though is hojicha, and there's a reason for it. It's just incredibly aromatic. You get that really beautifully buttery Maillard aromatic complexity happening. It's like butterscotch and cashews and yeah, really, really nice. Okay, so like any good pairing, we want to drink the tea first, and then we want to come back to it once we've had a chance to try some of this dessert. So again, this is the sweet anko red bean made a little bit soupy, served with the rice balls and some chestnut. It has been sweetened with some organic cane sugar. And I love that these chestnuts are from Victoria. Or Saanich, Greater Victoria. Really, 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 really good. Wow. It's a really satisfying dessert. I find that, I remember when I was first kind of introduced to anko, or the red bean, it was hard for me to wrap my head around it because I was raised on a more savory version of this texture. Beans to me were always like in soups, or they were pureed and inside of say like a burrito or something. And to have them as a sweet dessert was a little bit of a, yeah, it was definitely different for me. But yeah, that's really nice. I remember when I had them way back in the day, I remember that bean flavor would kind of catch in my throat a bit, and I found it actually not very pleasant, even though it's very, very popular. I love it now, but I found that first pairing for me that I really liked was sencha with a daifuku, and it kind of blew my mind that when I had it on its own, it was pretty good, but when I had it with the tea, how much I loved it at that point. Like there was like a more than 1 + 1 = 2. It was like 1 + 1 = 55 or 100. It was amazing. Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah, you know, and something else that I really find is that, you know, when you have something sweet, it leaves sort of a residual kind of sugary, I guess, not residue, but it just stays in your mouth. And I find that to this day, I can't eat a sweet without having some tea or a coffee or something afterwards that helps to eliminate that sweet flavor. I really find it unpleasant to end a meal with just that sweet flavor in my mouth. But I do really like sort of this roasted, sort of light tannin. Yeah, it just makes a big difference. So there's I'm sure a cultural component to why we have our red bean. I have done some reading as to, you know, uji kintoki, this whole idea of matcha and red bean and cream, and this idea of like a monk back in the day who was made this whole concept part of like good fortune, etc. But I don't want to expose my ignorance any further. It's worth looking up anko, red bean, and that connection to traditional culture. But just for my life, what I've experienced is that this is just something I look forward to, like a nice dinner at Christmas, or a you know, champagne at New Year's or something. You know, it's just a really lovely way to bring in the year. Is we hit the new year and we're having some hot zenzai, and just how warming it is, and how beautiful it is for the soul. So highly encourage you to do it. If you can go and get yourself some anko I kind of like, they sell it 2 different ways, tsubuan and they also have koshian. And essentially tsubu is like bits, so there's lots of sort of texture still left in it, whereas koshian literally means strained anko, so it's pureed, and it's more like a very refried bean kind of texture to it. I think for this dessert, it's even better if you can just cook the adzuki beans yourself and add some sugar and just look it up online for a recipe. But you could also just grab some tsubuan, and you could, for a quick sort of version of this from your local Japanese grocer, and you can add a little bit of hot water and then make essentially dumplings with rice flour. And you can drop those in and slice up some chestnuts, and you're going to have a really lovely dessert. Now, the anko that you get at the grocer is going to already be pre-sweetened, so you won't have to sweeten it. But if you are making the adzuki from scratch, or the anko soup, I guess, from scratch, then you probably want to add your sweetener of choice. But really nice with that hojicha. Highly recommend it. Again, really great conversation about hojicha with Uchida Shokudo early in the pandemic. So back in 2020, he was one of our first guests, and I think one of our first 10 guests. So go way back in our archive there, and you can find Yasu talking with us from his restaurant next door, and just discussing hojicha and its role in that traditional context with his shop and why he chooses to work with it. But yeah, really nice to come back to it today. Hope you've enjoyed. So yeah, if you have any comments or anything that you want to ask questions about, please feel free to do so. Our comment section, I'll be checking out a little bit more actively this year. This is going to be a goal for myself. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them, and I will do my best to respond. Thank you so much for watching. You can go to JagaSilk.com, and you can sign up for a newsletter, and you can get updates on shows that are coming up. You can also just go on our YouTube channel and scroll through all of those archive shows. And looking forward to seeing you next week. Next week, we're going to have Adrian Bronson from Serendipity Tea join us, or formerly of Serendipity Tea, I should say. And we're going to drink some of our reserve floral lapsang souchong. I've always been a big hater of lapsang souchong because the artificial smoke flavor just destroys me. I really, like, in a bad way, like, I really don't like it. But I've since had some really interesting smoked teas, but this one in particular is not smoked, so the style was unfamiliar to me. But I guess it's sort of like I had a Keeman a number of years ago for the first time that wasn't smoky, and most people associate that smoky flavor with Keemans too, but I'm so into Keemans that are just more malty and floral. I love, like, the rose and the cacao that you get out of an unsmoked, more complex Keeman, in my opinion. So this lapsang souchong is definitely in that category, where it's super perfumey and interesting, but it's not been scented. It's just a very great representation of really great technique on the part of a farmer from Wuyi Mountain. So really looking forward to sharing that with you next week. So tune in, 1 o'clock, JagaVision, Thursdays. Looking forward to see you then. Have a wonderful day. Short episode today. I'm Jared Nyberg, JagaSilk. You take care.